Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. Today we are going to have a little chat with our friend Leo, who's all the way from Japan. And we're going to talk about a little bit about what the football's like over in Japan, as well as the presence of Brighton and the Premier League. So let's dive straight in. So Leo, thank you very much for giving up some of your time to be with us today. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm melting, but yeah, I'm very excited to speak to you.
Very good. What's the temperature like over there? What's the humidity like?
It should be about maybe 30 degrees Celsius at the moment. Humidity maybe 70%. Yeah, pretty awful.
I bet. We also welcome Kurtis back to the show. Kurtis, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm happy to do this today. Good to speak to new people and to see your lovely face, Thomas.
Of course, it is always lovely to see in my face, and it is always lovely to chat to Brighton fans living around the world. So, Leo, we always like to start these little chats off by asking the same three questions. It just helps build that wider picture of yourself as a Brighton fan. So, the first one I'm going to ask you, mate, I'm going to throw your way, is what was the first game you saw Brighton play, be it in person or on the TV? What was the first game you remember seeing?
So the first ever game I've watched was actually in the Amex Stadium. It was against Atletico Madrid, preseason game. 3-2 to Atletico, if I remember correctly. And yeah, that kind of got me stuck into the team.
Very nice, and a really good first game as well. Good stuff, good stuff. Over to you, Kurtis, you're muted.
Oh, there we go. I said, just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so Leo, who is your favourite player, past or present? Would you say?
It's quite a difficult question. I really do like Mope, his attitude and how he plays. And of course, Mitoma, as he's Japanese. Haven't seen him playing for Brighton for long. I pretty much like all the players, so it's kind of difficult to choose one.
That's a great answer, Leo. That's an excellent answer.
I think, Mope is my favorite.
Some good choices, and we will be speaking about Neil Mope a little bit later, as well as, of course, about Mitoma. And the final question we always like to ask fans, Leo, is about their favourite Brighton shirt. Now, I don't know if you have been on the Twitter sphere recently, but the new home shirt was released, and a lot of fans weren't very happy. So this seems a bit of a topical question. What is your favourite Brighton shirt?
Yeah, I haven't actually been watching Brighton for so long, so I haven't got a big choice, but I really did like last year's away kit, definitely. And this one I've got right now, this one I really liked with the pinstripes.
Beautiful choice. Yeah, I love the collar on that, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I've made it very clear that the one that you're wearing, Leo, is probably one of my favourite. I do like a pinstripe, as you can see behind me. So some fine choices there, Leo. Some very fine choices. So, Leo, let's dive in. Let's find it out a little bit more about yourself. So you say that your first game was at the Amex watching Brighton in a pre-season game. How did going to that game come about? Did you just sort of were you visiting the city and you thought, you know what, I might go and catch a bit of football? So yeah, how did that happen?
So I have a friend who lives in Brighton, so he got me tickets and took me to the game. So I think it's the first ever Premier League team game I've ever seen. So yeah, I haven't got roots. I haven't got family in Brighton, but none of my family are really football fans. So that kind of caused me to just get really stuck into the team, and ever since I've been watching it.
It's essentially how that started for me, really. My family were never huge football fans, really. And my brother started supporting Reading FC. And I was just like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I once watched it was Brighton versus Nottingham Forest. and I absolutely just fell in love with the team from there. So that's how it started for me.
It's funny, isn't it? We've got such varying experiences. Mine was very much my granddad, my dad were like, "You're coming to the football with us," and I was like, "Okay." As a child of 9 years old, and I sat at the Withdean, our previous stadium, and froze in I think it was December or January. I can never remember which it was. I think it was December. I think it was Boxing Day, and I froze because that was what I did as a 9-year-old. So there you go. Thanks for that, Leo. So you went to that first game. Your friends dragged you along. So to come out of that game and think, you know what, I'm gonna continue to support that team. So when you went back to Japan, is there much of a Premier League following in Japan? I know that there's obviously the J League, and I believe that baseball is quite a big sport in Japan as well. So where does sort of like watching soccer or football, where does that fit into sort of like Japanese sporting culture?
So yeah, baseball is a really big sport, but co-hosting the World Cup 2002, I think, that kind of completely blew up the football world in Japan. And there's lots of kind of streaming services right now battling who can get the Premier League rights. So Premier League is actually quite big. It's probably most watched amongst Spain, apart from J League. So I think having Minamino as well. So yeah, football's now, I think, the biggest kind of sport culture in Japan now. So yeah, like every other kid seems to be watching some team, whether it's in Japan or overseas.
And would you say there is a more of a, how do I put it? Is there a Brighton following in Japan that you've seen, sort of a larger following?
So Brighton, until last season, didn't really have such a big following in Japan. Really, there's not much news or anything about the team, so it's kind of difficult to learn about the team. Of course, having Mitoma here now has kind of blew it up. But yeah, until last season, it was just me and a few friends. We kind of found the occasional odd Brighton supporter in Japan on Twitter, but really it was just me and a few friends that kind of started the whole fan base in Japan.
So do you believe that having a player like Mitoma will generate a lot more exposure for the club, especially in Japan?
Definitely, because my Brighton account that I run, it had about 200 followers for last season, and then it just completely went from 200 to 1,100 in the course of a month after Mitoma was announced. So it's definitely gaining lots of exposure for the club.
Okay, so why don't you tell our watchers what you do on your page?
So it was basically me and another friend who supports Chelsea kind of started it. I started the Brighton account, he started the Chelsea account, and we basically just translate Brighton information into Japanese. So there's kind of more ways for Japanese people to learn about Brighton. It was kind of sad to be just watching with me and my 3 mates, so we're hoping to make some more friends. But yeah, it kind of went a bit further than I was expecting.
That's really exciting, Leo, and thank you for carrying the torch for this club over in Japan. You and your 3 friends. So thank you very much for that. Just about Mitoma, because Mitoma spent last season on loan at Union Saint-Gilloise, and he's recently come back to Brighton. And in the little that we've seen of him, he's a very exciting player. I believe he's quite successful for the Japanese national team. Have you seen much of Mitoma play for the national team at all, or when he played in the J League?
So yeah, kind of national team was where I first noticed how good a player he was. He did play in Kawasaki which is a J League team, Champions team, and I've heard that he was really good. I haven't really watched that team, especially because my local team is in the second division, so we never really meet paths. But yeah, so I think national team was where all the Japanese football fans kind of realize how big a player he's going to be, and I think how much that he's going to kind of fit into European football. Because up until recently, the Japanese national team was kind of formed of mostly J League players. Japan was never a kind of really strong team. Now they seem to be winning lots of international games, and I think the clubs have improved, the national team has improved, and university and high school football is quite big. So there's lots of exciting academy players as well. So yeah.
That's really exciting, and it's really nice to hear that soccer is becoming more and more sort of part of the sporting culture over in Japan. I remember, we've seen Japanese players play in the Premier League before. Shinji Kagawa played for Manchester United, I believe, and I always rated him very highly. I know he had a successful Bundesliga career as well. But we don't often get many Japanese players play in the Premier League, do we, Kurtis? I think there seem to be quite a lot of Japanese players in parts of Europe, like in Japan. Sorry, not in Japan, in Germany. But it's really exciting to see what Mitoma can do in the Premier League, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following his stint at Union, and I was very excited to see him come in because he seems to have a lot of passion. He seems to really care and wants to play for the shirt and what have you, and just very excited to see what he can do at Brighton. It's really exciting times.
Very much so. So, Leo, just coming back to this idea about football in Japan in terms of the J League, we've seen in recent years some relatively big names like to join J League clubs. I think Iniesta joined a club in Japan. So, do you think that the profile is gradually getting better and the quality is improving over there?
Yeah, I think it's definitely improving over the years. Having Iniesta's club is now battling in relegation zone. I think that kind of shows how competitive a league it is. Similar to Premier League, I don't think there's quite a big difference between each club's ability. Unlike Premier League, there's not much of a difference in the budget for each team, so it's quite an equal league. Very exciting to see which clubs are battling for the champion, which clubs are battling for relegation. So yeah, it's definitely improving, and I'm kind of excited to see more Japanese players ending up in Europe soon.
Very exciting stuff. I always think that whenever leagues around the world improve, it's good for the sport in general. To be honest, I said the same thing about the MLS when we chatted to the Brighton fans over there. Fantastic to see the quality of leagues across the world improving as football becomes even more of a global sport that can bring fans, unite fans all together. And talking of uniting fans in sport, Leo, I don't know if you know, but when you go on the Amex Stadium tour, which, by the way, is always worth a go, there is a special little corner that they show you, and it is where Japan famously scored that last-minute try against South Africa in the Rugby World Cup all those years ago. And when I went on the tour, they said that a lot of Japanese sporting fans come to do the stadium tour just to see that spot. I know that rugby is relatively popular in Japan. Is there a link? Do fans make that link between the Amex Stadium scoring that try and Brighton Football Club, or is it something that fans don't really think about?
To be honest, I didn't notice that the Amex Stadium was where that happened. I knew about the actual game. It only just kind of clicked today that it was such a significant thing for the stadium. So it's just a guess, but I don't think a lot of fans realize the connection between the football club and the stadium. But yeah, it was a good thing to know, and I think I'll be able to tweet that on my account to see if I can get any rugby fans to notice about the club as well.
Fantastic. So, Leo, a question, in regards to football in Japan, how would you say, what's the quality like in comparison to, say, other leagues in Europe and what have you? So,
Of course, it's not as big a league as the top European leagues. I think there's a reason why Japanese players can't get a work permit straight away. But as I said, it's probably gradually getting better, and I'm not sure what comparison I can make and what I can't. The players, of course, Japanese people aren't kind of built as strong as European players, so more technical players than physical players. So it's a completely different game, really, when you look at the different leagues. So I think it's kind of difficult to make a comparison what league's better. But I can say it's definitely not as competitive as Premier League, say. But I think it's getting there, maybe similar to Turkish leagues or South American leagues. Because Japan as a country is quite a, how do I word it? Can't find the right word, but sport is quite big in general, and I think more younger fans are growing onto the sport. So I think it will become more and more competitive and start to kind of fight for one of the better leagues in the world.
so obviously, as you said, you've been to the Amex and you've seen one of our games. How do the sort of game day experiences compare to, say, a J League game?
So one thing I noticed, a big difference between the fans in Japan and England, is that Japanese fans are more like very, very organized. So we seem to have like a chant for every single occasion. Like when we winning with 1-0 or whether we're losing and I've noticed in England that some random fans can just start a song and get the whole stadium going. But that never happens in Japan. It's always the ultras starting the chants. So I don't know, the fans are much more organized in Japan, but I think because it's such a organized fan base, it's not as kind of, I wouldn't say toxic, but not as kind of competitive with other fans as say in England. The rivalry is not quite as big in here compared to England.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it is something that English football fans we do have to live with. We're not particularly well viewed around the world historically. Some fans, of course, majority of football fans, like in most places, are good people that just want to go and watch their football team play. However, there's always a small minority who almost unfortunately just go to because they want to cause trouble. But no, I'm glad to hear that sort of toxic sort of behaviour isn't present over in Japan, and I hope it doesn't become so. The more popular football gets over there, yeah, because it's not pleasant. You should never have to go to a football game worrying about what other fans of opposition teams might do or what they might say. So no, that's
Well,
really
it's
good
also people in your own fan base too can be just as toxic. It's a very sad state of affairs. I mean, we're all there for the same reason. We all love the same thing. So why are we fighting over this thing? We should just we can laugh together, cry together if necessary. We should just all be a collective unit and respect what we're doing and what we're seeing. So.
Very well said, Kurtis. Very well said. So, Leo, thank you very much for that sort of insight into, football in Japan. It's really interesting. I always find it so fascinating to see, football from different perspectives. And so I really value your opinion on that. I'd also like to get your opinion,
quickly,
Leo.
Tom,
Go.
Very quickly, I'm sorry. It's still very mind-boggling to me that we have these little pockets of fans in places like Japan, considering we're not a massive club like in Manchester United and cities and what have you. So it's just wonderful to hear that we have these dedicated pockets of fans just scattered around the world. It's really wonderful.
It really is. And, if you had told me that while I was sat at the Withdean at that game with my dad and my granddad, that we'd one day be chatting to people from America, from Japan, that we'd be engaging with fans in Brazil, I would have laughed at you, because I would have never have thought that this tiny little club that I support could ever become this global.
It's heartwarming. It truly is.
It really is. And it just shows what a long way we've come as a club. So, Leo, just before we sign off, I'd love to get your thoughts, because you said about Neil Maupay being one of your favourite players. And rumours have recently surfaced about an Italian side, pardon the butchering of this pronunciation, Salernitana, and they have supposedly put in a £15 million bid. And other reports suggest that the club are hopeful to get that deal done. Leo, he's you said he's one of your favourite players. Would you be sad to see him go?
Yeah, I'd definitely be very sad to see him go. Unfortunately, I haven't really got much clue about club business, so I don't know if it's a good move for the club or not. But yeah, I personally wouldn't want to see him go, and I think he's a good spark of enthusiasm for the club as well. I think he's got quite a strong personality. Sometimes it's for the worse, sometimes it's for the better, but I think it would definitely be a blow to see him go. And also, I see Undav as kind of a similar player in perspective of personality, but I'm not quite convinced he's quite ready to replace how Maupay affects the club. So I'd personally love to see him play one more season at least. But yeah, I don't know how that would affect the club as a whole. So
yeah, I mean, this is what we were saying, Leo, before you arrived. We were saying we have Dennis now, but he's untested, obviously, in the Premier League, so it's a bit risky, obviously. And we do have other options. Like I know from what I've seen, Mitoma's able to obviously score goals and what have you if he needs to be. But I agree with you. I think keep him at least for another season and then make a decision, because I think to get rid of him now might just be a bit too risky, ultimately.
Yeah, going into a season with potential strike forces of recognised strikers of Welbeck, who's had injury problems, Undav, who scores goals but is untested at this sort of level, and then Evan Ferguson, who's a under 23s player. That's a very risky strategy. Now, I know that Neil Maupay has about a year left on his current contract, so the club might see this supposed 15 million as a good bit of business. But I am under the impression, or I do believe, shall I say, that they have allowed this news to get out there in an attempt to perhaps drive the price up. I could be completely wrong, but I do echo what both of you had said. I would much rather he stay for another year if we can get him to. Another piece of news that has been released this morning, guys, is that I don't know if you followed the whole Cucurella transfer saga, Leo. It's been a very tiring few days of hearing he's agreed personal terms. He's agreed personal terms. But apparently it's been reported this morning that Manchester City have signed Borna Sosa, a left back from Stuttgart. Kurtis, do you think that this might signal the end of their pursuit of Cucurella? Or do we just-
I hope so. I'm just tired of hearing about it for one thing. And I just don't want Cucurella to leave. I think he's a fantastic player. It would be sad to see him leave after just one season with us. But it sounds like Tony Bloom is standing his ground and not being strong-armed, which is a fantastic thing. And I knew he would he would not be moved, so to speak. So let's hope that all this is true and we can hold on to him for at least another season.
Most definitely. Manchester City reportedly falling well short of Tony Bloom's asking price, which is circa £50 million. Now, Leo, I don't know what J-League transfer business is like, but that sort of figure, £50 million, would that be seen in the J-League as like just some astronomical fee for a player?
Yeah, it's just unbelievable how large a price that, and that's kind of now Premier League standard, having like how many tens of millions pounds. It's pretty unbelievable. Like with the amount, like £50 million, you could buy major shares in like my local club. Like yeah, I think if I was a J-League fan who had never had any contact with a Premier League team, I'd be just, I wouldn't believe how big a price it moves on. So yeah, comparing to J-League, that's kind of nearly impossible.
I mean, seeing people like Haaland come in for like 100 million itself is just astronomical amount of money. But I was saying this to my brother the other day. We were saying, do you reckon in our lifetime we'll ever see £1 billion player? Do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
It's unsustainable, though. It's unsustainable. I don't see,
and it's just not fair, is it? Imagine if like you have City or what have you that are spending 2, 3, 4, 500 million or what have you, just bringing all these players. It's not really fair, is it? Because again, like Brighton,
financial fair play for this very reason.
We can't spend that amount of money, so it's weird. It's very strange.
I think as football becomes more of a global sport, I know the Premier League very much is a global sort of commodity. I think that as long as those TV rights and those TV deals keep getting made, that's when the money just keeps rolling in. I would like to eventually see it become more of a streaming service similar to Netflix. I think that's a model that could work very well, both for the Premier League in terms of a financial movement, but also it would make it so much easier for fans around the world to watch their favorite football teams. That's what I hope eventually happens anyway. So, guys, thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you so much, Leo, again for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, my friend, and to see a little bit of insight about football in Japan and Brighton in Japan as well. Words that, teenage me never thought he'd say. So thank you very much, Leo. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Kurtis, a pleasure as always, my friend. And Albion Obsessed listeners and viewers, we hope to come to you soon with some more content. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. We'll see you next time. Take care.